Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new week of builds with me, Sherman. Now, first off, before I go any further, I do want to say these are non-meta builds to help people get to the end game. These are not builds that are meant to be played at competitive in-game levels. They are to help you get into the end game and to help you understand mechanics, the dynamics and stuff of the group, and to play at that greater difficulty of the trials and stuff like that. Now, you can play some of these builds with some adjustments and do vet trials and stuff like that, and some of them you don't even need to make the adjustments. You just take them right in there and they'll be fine. So if you guys didn't know, I have been working on a build on several builds over the last 6 months. Now, everyone says I don't see how you have time to test. I have a lot of time to test, guys. I mean, I've spent a lot of time testing, doing number crunching, all that kind of stuff, just like everyone else. It's just, I don't want to, like, say, hey, go play this. Like, go play the meta. Because, honestly, it takes time to get to that level of degree of play, to play those builds. And this will help ease you into that kind of play style, if you want it. Now, a lot of these builds do use the meta structure, but a lot of them are also around the idea of, hey, if you want group dynamics, you can play this. Now, some of these choices I've made in races and class and all that can also be adjusted. So, just saying. So, getting right into it, this is the Grim Healer. I know, it sounds weird. This is a DK healer build that is actually based off the design of my friend Grim's own healer, but I'm not using the same gear setups as him and stuff, and it's his design or his idea, but done into my flair, if you will. Now, what he normally runs in gear, I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys. He usually runs 5 heavy, 5 light. He runs 3 heavy jewelry set, you know, from a heavy jewelry set, or heavy set, and then 2 heavy pieces, and then 5 light with it. And he does use a 1-piece monster set, so it is a lot different than mine. He runs an Argonian, so I stuck with the Argonian on this. Now, being an Argonian and being a DK, you guys have to understand, without running inner light on your bar, your Magicka pool is going to be really small, because they don't get any other Magicka bonuses. And so your Magicka pool is going to be about as high as a DPS, like a regular stamina DPS, anywhere between 30 and 40k, somewhere in there, depending on what race you choose. But it's going to be low, and there's nothing you can do to change it from not being low. Because if you add inner light, you give up space for abilities that you might need for certain content. This is the part about playing a Dragon Knight that's different. See, every class plays a different way, and you have to play off their strengths and weaknesses. Otherwise, they're not going to work as well. So, getting right into the build itself, taking a look at the stats, as you can see, 33k Magicka, 17k health. Now, I am using a one tri-stat glyph in the whole build, and that's it. So just one, and that's to kind of give me a little bit more of a cushion in my health and my max Magicka. That's it. If you notice, I actually have a little bit higher spell damage than most do, and that's because I am using a Magicka damage glyph, because this build really needs anything it can get to give it a greater bonus in healing. Because DK's 1 don't get any extra healing effect except from Igneous Shield, and that's a 25%. They don't get minor mending unless they heavy attack with the resto staff. And they don't get minor mending, they get major mending again. So, they have no major mending or minor mending at all. So you have to kind of build into that idea that they don't have the mending, that they don't have the extra healing done. So you have to kind of compensate. Now, you'll notice also I have a 1931 magic recovery. I am running Night Mother, or I'll just show you guys. So the stats are 33k magic of 17k out, 10k stamina, 1,931 recovery. You really, with this build, you really don't need that much, but it's a good cushion to have. I'm just going to say that. Not too bad on the resistance, as typical of a healer. And then going down, we have the Atronach Mundustone, and as you can see, it only gives us 309. That's because we do have 3 infused pieces. This build works without 3 infused, but it works better with. Next, we have Sanctuary, which is one of the sets we're wearing. We have Major Prophecy on 1 bar, but we are using a Power Pots to boost not only our spell damage, but to also give us increased magic recovery. And then we are running the Witch Mother's Potent Brew for the max health, max stamina, and max magic, the magic recovery bonus. So we're using those things. We are and the Atronach to give us a greater recovery rate. Now moving on to the gear, this is kind of a strange setup to some people because I'm only using a 1-piece monster set, and I'm not going to be using Master and Maelstrom staves. This is, like I said, to help you get to that level to where you can get those things and earn them, and then equip them when you need, like for the greater in-game stuff. So again, these are not in-game competitive meta type builds. These are just in-game, I'm going to help you get there kind of builds. So right up off the top, we are running a 1-piece Shadowrend for the extra magic recovery. On the 5-piece, we are running Combat Physician. This build plays off of damage shields a lot to help mitigate damage for the group, and also to make your heal, make it a little bit easier for you to heal your allies. Because the more damage shields you apply, if they're hurt, you can apply a damage shield and you can heal them. So heal them a little bit better and keep those heals coming in for them more effectively. Because those damage shields do mitigate damage. It doesn't mitigate, some of them don't mitigate a lot, but some do. So that's why we're using Combat Physician, and we are running 3 infused on the chest, helm, and legs, and the rest is Divines. Now, like I said, we are running that and Sanctuary. The Sanctuary set's a really good healer set, because the reason why I say it's a good healer set is because of how it works. One, it gives you max health. Max health is always going to be beneficial to a healer. Especially if you're not using a source that gives you max health. If you're not using like your champion or your attribute points, or you're not using this or you're not using that, it kind of throws it off. So this allows you to get that extra little bit that you need. So, and the 4% healing taken, don't stress it that you're running this, because I know this is more of a, in my opinion, personal opinion, this is more of what a tank would run. But for a healer, it's a really good idea, especially a DK. It gives you extra magicka as well, and then it increases your healing received by 12% for you and up to 12 members of your party within 10 meters. So if they're within 10 meters of you, you're going to heal them for more. So this is more of a kind of like up front. You have to be kind of mid-level, as Grim likes to put it, in the battle. So you have to be kind of in the middle to keep this effect really good on your allies. If you can, I would go with the healing set out of the Maelstrom, or not a Maelstrom, out of Dragonstar Arena, the Healer's Habit, I think it's called, or something like that. But it basically gives you it gives you minor mending all the time. That's a lot better set for a DK, because like I said, they get no extra ways of getting extra heals. So onto the staffs, we are running 2 infused staffs. On one staff, we are running a reduced weapon damage weakening enchant. On the other one, we're doing one that is does magic damage and restores magic. Both are infused because we're getting so much extra healing from the Sanctuary set that we don't need the other stuff. So now remember, like I said, Sanctuary only has a 10-meter range. The other set from Dragon Star Arena is like, it doesn't matter. You just get the minor mending all the time, which is really good for you as a DK. So if you want, once you move up to greater difficulties, you can switch both out for weakening. If you'd notice, I'm running an Inferno destruction stuff because DKs actually benefit from using fire-based stuff versus lightning. So I stuck with the idea of, hey, you know what, I'm using this. This is going to give me the greater advantage, even when I'm solo playing. So moving down here, the reason I chose this, and I chose the Magicka Return, is that's going to be every 5 seconds. You're going to get magic damage, and you're going to get a return of magicka. It's a small amount, but it kind of just helps to manage your resources a little bit better by a really small amount. Now, the cool thing about it is if you time it right, you can actually use it with a heavy attack, and you'll not only get this back plus 60%, because resto stats give you 30%, you get a baseline of 30%, but you'll also get your champion points addition, which is, I think I have it set to 14, so you're going to get 74% back on your heavy attacks, plus you're going to get this amount, and you're going to get that amount as well. So you're going to want to focus heavy attacks on the back bar as much as possible. The only time you want to focus here is when you're like doing trash. That's why this is here, is to help with trash. There's another reason why it's here, and we'll get to that in a second. So, alright. So that's it for the gear. We're going to move on to the skills, and the skills are going to be kind of awkward to some of you because this is a DK, so it doesn't work the same as a Templar. It doesn't work the same as a Warden. It doesn't work the same as a Nightblade. It doesn't work the same as Sork. So it utilizes a different category of skills to kind of give you the same premise. So the first skill on our bar here, or the first thing I want to I should cover is passives. Again, I did this in the last video, but just make sure whatever you use, it doesn't matter. Whatever you're using destruction stuff, resto stuff, your class, any armor types you're wearing. If you're just wearing all light, make sure you just fill out the light. Don't touch the medium and heavy. Make sure that you get all the passives to things that are going to be important for use. Now, if you notice here, I do have Mage Light unlocked, so if you do want to swap Mage Light in here, this is what's going to happen, just so you guys can see. You're going to go to 35k. You're going to get 2k Magicka out of it. It's just, like, people are like, oh, well, that's going to be better. It's just not worth it. It really isn't. And the reason why I say that is because, yes, 2k is nice. It does improve your heals. It improves your capability and everything. But at the same time, it's not enough to make a difference. It really isn't. Like, it does improve your heals, it does improve some of your stuff, but it's not, like, that small of an increase isn't going to be enough to make it detrimental. What's going to make it different is using the power pot to boost your spell damage, and using the crit heals that your character can do to improve their overall healing effect. So that's pretty much what you have to do with the DK. You also have to do similar to a Nightblade, because their heals are done through dots, and they don't get a lot of burst heals. They don't get a lot of, like, oh crap, I need to heal. Now, the cool thing about the DK is how it works. It's a really interesting playstyle that I never thought I would like until I tried it, and now I'm loving it. So, like I said, just make sure you fill out the passives of all your skills. We're going to go ahead and go through the bars now. Starting with the first bar, we have Blockade of Fire. Now, why am I using Blockade of Fire? The one reason why is because you can do this if you're in a trial. Okay? And on the back bar, you can switch to the resto staff. You can grab Rapid Regeneration, Mutagen, Rapid Regeneration, whatever you want, and you can put it right here on the back bar, if you think you need it. If you don't think you need it, you can swap it back to the way I originally had it set up. And the reason I do run this on the front bar is because not everyone plays in-game all the time. So this gives you a way to play open world and do a little bit of damage without sacrificing your build and sacrificing your setup to, oh well, I'm going to set up for DPS now. You can just leave it as is, play in the open world, be fine. So it works out really well in the long run. Next up, we have Obsidian Chart. Now, a lot of people don't like this ability because it doesn't do a lot of damage, but it heals like a mofo, okay? 6,419, with all the healing that your character is already going to get from wearing Sanctuary, you can crit heal some people upwards to 24k. I wish I could show you guys. Actually, we're going to take a little trip. And we're going to go ahead and teleport here. And I'll finish the skills out and then show you guys a little bit of this build and how effective some of its heals are. So the main thing about this build is, because you're playing a class that doesn't have a lot of healing, extra healing capabilities, you need to find another source or way to mitigate, like, help your group. Now, a healer's role is to like heal and protect. Now, what's the best protection you can offer your group? Damage shields. What is the DK best at? Well, they have a really good group damage shield. Now, yours is not going to be near as powerful as like a tank's, and if you're playing with the tank, I would suggest dropping it. So even with this setup, you can still swap bars. You can drop this. If you're playing with a DK tank, drop this, slide everything over, and put your regeneration on here, whatever choice you choose. And it will work out in the end. Oh, before if I forget, I need to show you the glyphs on the jewelry. So on the jewelry, most people run recovery. But because of this particular thing, and how much recovery I already have, I don't need 2,500, I don't need 2,800. 2,000 works the best. It's like the perfect spot with the amount of cost of casting to return every 2 seconds. So that's the reason why I go with 2,000 recovery. So looking down here at the jewelry, you're probably thinking, well, what is he running then? Spell damage? No. Spell cost reduction. DK spells cost a fortune in Magicka. So I reduce the cost of what I have to spend by 406 points. That saved me a lot of resources. So I can cast spells more effectively. Next up, I am using 1 spell damage glyph, like I said. And that's to give me just enough to boost my healing overall. So moving down the line here on the skills, we have this Obsidian Chart. This is going to be like your main tank heal. You're going to be popping this every so often to make sure that you can burst heal your tank if your tank takes a big hit. The next skill you're going to have is Cauterize. Now, Cauterize, a lot of people think it only applies to allies. It actually applies to you as well. And the heal is pretty good. Now, the way it works is it launches a fireball at an ally to cauterize their wounds every 5 seconds. This is like one of your only heal over times. So this is kind of important to have. Now, it also gives you major proficiency, but don't worry about that. It's the heal you want. You just want it for the heal. That's it. Moving on to the next skill. This is another reason why we run a Destro staff, is for the elemental drain. This isn't just for you. This is also for, like, to support your allies with Magicka Steel. Anytime they do a whenever they damage the enemy, they're going to get Magicka back. Doesn't matter whether it's a tank, a healer, DPS, you're going to get Magicka back. And this is just a good way to give them extra Magicka back at 300 a tick. Now, if a tank drops like a lightning wall, every time they take damage, it's going to give them 300 Magicka. So it's going to be a good way for them to manage their resources along with you, who are also going to be using this to manage your resources. Now, this is here also for damage purposes for when you're in the open world, like I said. So, Elemental Drain, great ability. And it also applies Major Breach. So it's really good for you when you're playing in solo. You can apply this, and this is going to do more damage, this is going to do more damage, your heavy attacks are going to do more damage, that kind of thing. So that's why we have that. Next up, we have Efficient Purge. This is here basically also because of one of the passives from support. Gives you 10% magic recovery. DKs get no magic recovery whatsoever in their class. Their best return of resources is through Battle Roar, and that gives them resources back if your resources aren't... it's going to give you more resources back if your resources aren't over 26,000. If they're over 26,000, you actually get less resources back, but you can still manage it better when you have 32,000 or 33,000 like this build does. So Battle Roar still works for you. It's just not as effective. Next up, we have Aggressive Warhorn. This is to buff your group's max Magicka, stamina, and health by 10%. It also applies Major Force, increasing your critical damage done by 15% for 9.5 seconds. Now, a lot of you are going to say, well, why didn't you use the other one that applies Major Ward, Major Ward, and Major Resolve, or Minor Ward, Minor Resolve? That's because I'm using it on my back bar. There's an ability I have that applies it for 12 seconds, which I figured was good enough. So, moving to the back bar, we are looking at Energy Orb. This does a heal as it passes by your allies, and it does crit heal for quite a bit. They can also synergize off it, and when they do, it heals for so much, and it heals all the targets in the area. So this is a good one to throw out. if the tank needs resources, if your DPS needs resources, whatever, and they're off of cooldown. Now remember, synergies were changed to 30 seconds cooldown, back to 20 this update. That's great. This is going to make it really good for you to keep this going and make it really effective. So try to remember that. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, why aren't you running Spell Power Cure? It does work for a DK, but it doesn't work if you're running the build this way. It just doesn't. Like with Sanctuary, it doesn't work. If you run Worm Cult in this, it doesn't work. The DK just doesn't work with that setup. The DK works really good with Combat Physician because of some of the abilities they have, and we'll get to that in here in a second. The next ability we have is Healing Springs. Now this is a magic return for you when you cast it, but it's a really good heal. It takes for 3 seconds. It does a nice heal on the cast, and then it heals 3 more times after that. So you get 4 ticks of healing out of it. It's pretty, like I said, it's just really good. But every hit friendly target you heal with it returns magicka to you. So this, like, the cost of it is actually going to be reduced based on how many people you heal. So it is a good heal. It's a great group heal, and it does return magicka to you. And that magicka basically, just like I said, covers the cost. Moving on. Now we get into this one. Why aren't you running Combat for Prayer? Because I chose this instead. This build, this setup is all about damage mitigation, or helping your group mitigate damage, not only through heals, but also through damage shields. That's why we run Combat Physician. That's why we run Sanctuary. That's why we run... The rest of it is all damage shields beyond this point. But this also applies Minor Ward, Minor Resolve, which increases everyone in your group's spell and physical resistance by 1320, as long as they're hit by this path. So if I cast it right here, everyone that gets hit is going to get Minor Ward, Minor Resolve. Now you can look at my resistances, they went up because of this and this. And this is really important, you have this, to mitigate damage. Alright, next up, we have Ward Ally. Now, why not Healing Ward? Well, you don't need Healing Ward on the main healer. On the main healer, you want to run this, because this is going to heal, or this is going to absorb damage. You've got the heals to heal with. You don't have the ability to help them mitigate more damage. So this allows you to build a damage shield on yourself and then put one on your allies. So that's why you have this, is to cast it on yourself, cast on your ally. And you want to keep this up as much as possible. So even in a trial, you're going to be popping this as much as you can, so you can get those extra damage shields on you and your allies. As you can see, for me, it's a 5k shield. Not that much. But for my allies, it's increased by 300. The shield strength is increased by up to 300% depending on the severity of the target's wounds. So this thing can go up to like 20k almost, depending on the wound. So it's a good way to get that on them and then heal them up. Next up, we have Igneous Shield. Now, Igneous Shield on a healer with 17k health. This is why Grim runs. It really does run. He runs instead of Sanctuary. I would trade Sanctuary out personally for what he runs, and that is Shulks. He runs 5 pieces of Shulks. And those 5 pieces give him greater ultimate gen. And there's a good reason why he wants the ultimate gen. First off, if you guys didn't know, the DK, whenever in combat, every so many seconds, every 6 seconds, they gain 3 ultimate in combat. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to cast anything. They automatically get 3 ultimate every 6 seconds when they're in combat. When you cast this ability, it generates ultimate. When you cast this ability, it'll generate ultimate. And that gives you more resource management and your ultimate gen. But when you run Shulks, you're going to get minor heroism all the time. With the greater health pool and playing an Argonian, you end up with a much bigger health pool, around 25k, just from wearing those Shulks. And that's going to give you much greater damage shields, almost a 4k damage shield across your whole party. On top of that, you get major mending, which increases your healing done by 25% for 3 seconds. So as when I cast this, if I cast it, I want to do it, and then I want to do a heal right afterwards. So that way I can get the greater effect from the heals. If somebody's hurting really bad, I want to do that. And if I can, I want to do this, actually. Oops. That. Because that's my biggest heal. Is this Obsidian Chart. Now, continuing on, this is a great shield. But this is your best shield. Reviving Barrier. Now, I don't know how Grim has his set up the way he does, but his is like 42,000. It's insane, like how powerful his shield is. And his heals are like 28k on the damage shield. It's some absurd number like that. It's insane. But this is good enough. 30,000 with a 21k heal over 30 seconds. This is the longest lasting damage shield you can use in the game. This is great for group protection. Now, I will say this. If your tanks and your 2 tanks and your support can keep Warhorn up between the 3 of them, this is what you should use to help your group get through those trials, because this is going to be a lot better for you to cast to keep everyone protected. Alright, so that's it for the skills. We're going to go over the champion points real quick, and then I'll show you guys a little bit of this in action. So, onto the champion points, very similar to my tank setups, especially this part. We're going to run 37 into Ironclad. This is going to reduce the direct damage attacks we take by 15%. This is just because we have such a low physical resistance, this is going to help us mitigate some extra damage. Moving on over here, we have 37 into Thick Skin. This reduces any damage we take from damage over time. Again, just to help mitigate damage. 43 in a Hardy, 43 in an Elemental Defender. This is just to mitigate extra damage of any type, pretty much. Physical, poison, disease, flame, frost, shock, and magic damage. So you're going to be able to mitigate all those between these two. Now, if you wanted to, you could take points out of here, take these down to 23 each, giving you 10%, and you could dump the rest of those points in here, but it really wouldn't change much. So moving on to this tree, we have 16 in Expert Defender. This reduces light and heavy attack damage you take by 10, and we have 56 in the Bastion. This boosts all your damage shields. Now on the DK, this is really good, like, because of their damage shields. Like, they're all about damage shields, and it not only boosts your damage shields, but it also boosts the damage shields from the gear set that you're running. So it's at like almost 10k itself. So really good way to keep, like I said, mitigate damage, heal, mitigate damage, heal. That's how this build works. Next up is Quick Recovery. Just a little bit in here, gives you 2%. Don't stress it, because you're already getting 12% healing received anyways. Next up, Warlord, 23 points. This reduces the cost of break free by 10%. 16 into Sprinter, reducing your sprint cost by 10%. Moving on to the middle tree. Okay, I was wrong. We have 43 in Arcanist. This increases our magic recovery by 14%. And with the 10% we get from the other one, we have a 24% magic recovery. That's how come our magic recovery is so high as it is, with only the Witchmother's Brew and the Antronach Stone, and then one recovery thing is you don't need anymore. Tenacity, 10%, so we actually get a 70% return of our heavy attacks, so this gives us a little bit more back on our heavy attacks. Moving on over here, we have 37 in a Befoul. If you want, and I say that if you want, the reason I did that is because if you want to run this in a dungeon, you can use it, and it's going to boost that Major Defile that it does. It's going to boost it by a percentage amount, and that's going to help you reduce healing received on certain encounters. That's only if you want to use it, and that's the truth. Otherwise, there really wasn't a whole lot I could do with the points besides put into other things, put more into other things. Next up, we have 23 into Tumbling. Now, you could take this 37 and put it into here, and take this up to 75 almost. It'd go up to 70, which would put you close to the 14%. But 23 into Tumbling, this gives you 10% reduced dodge roll cost, and then 23 into Shadow Ward. Just in case you do have to block a heavy attack, you can get it at a reduced cost, saving you some stamina. Now, moving on to the last and final area, and this is where people are going to get confused because I don't use the meta setup. I use my own. I put 70... Okay, I gotta fix something. Let me do this. So let me... Let me see here. Do I have any points I can spare from anything? I don't. I really don't. Holy cow, I don't. Okay, so we're just going to leave it as is. We have 74 in here. This gives us 13%. It's not quite 14%. It's better to put 75 in here, but with the way this is set up, you really want to leave it the way it is. I know it sounds crazy, but it is. You do. You're still going to get 13% healing done. And that's 1% off from the 34. But 34, or the 14, sorry, 14 would be better. Next up, we have 56 into Elfborn. This increases all of our critical heals done by 20%. That's why we have the higher crit chance, is to increase our critical healing capabilities. It's not just for crit damage, it's for the crit heals. Remember, like you said, we don't get as much effect as a Templar does. And the Templar gets 14 from here, they get 8% from something else, you know, they get a lot of healing done. Period. And they can pull off a lot more than we can. So you have to play this build a little differently. 43 into Elemental Expert. This increases Flame, Frost, Shock, and Magic damage. Your Fire Staff does fire damage. Your Resto Staff does magic damage. So this just helps you boost the damage from those things for when you're solo playing, or if you just want to bring some extra damage to your group in a dungeon. You can do some heavy attacks, that kind of thing. Moving on to the middle tree, we have 21 into Staff Expert. This increases your light and heavy attack of your Destruction and Resto Staffs. Again, increasing your damage potential. 23 into here, 10%. Between the two, it's pretty good. We could actually do this, honestly. If you want. You can take this down to 16. Put 1 point in here and put the other 4 right here. And that's fine. That'll be fine. So 10% here, 10% here. That's 20%. This is 30% on your heavy attacks. If they crit, they're boosted up to 70 more percent. So you're not only getting just 30% increase, you're actually getting a lot bigger increase in your damage potential. So, moving on to over here, we have 23 in the Thaumaturge. This is to increase our damage from the damage done from our damage over time. This is just for that Destruction Staff AoE that we put down, the Wall of Elements, to increase its damage output. So let me go ahead and show you guys a little bit about this build and why I call it, or why it works the way it does. First off, we're going to go over here. We're going to let the giant beat on us for a second. And let our health go down some. And I'll show you guys the heals from the fist. So as you can see, I'm at 6k, almost 3k health. That was a 13k heal without power pots. If I use my power pot now, I need to let him do some damage to me, sorry. Alright. Now if I use my power pots, which you didn't get to see because I popped a damage shield on myself right at the last second there off of my combat position. So that was a 6k one that didn't crit. Now I'm going to carterize myself, and you're going to see it applies to me as well as my group. So carterize does work for you and your group. It works out really good. Now we're going to let him do a little bit more damage to us. And I'm going to just show you guys the damage shield aspects here. So we're going to use this. Again, the damage shield from it is just enough to mitigate some damage for me, for my allies. It's just going to be like a flea tick removal. It just helps mitigate some extra damage is all. Go ahead and heal myself up from my thing here. And then the other one that I want to show you guys is what happens when I use Warhorn. And this is why I can get away with a 17k health. With Warhorn going, I actually go up to 36k Magicka, 19k health. And I can keep this up pretty good in a group. In a trial situation, it's going to pretty much be up. You want to keep it up as much as you can. So you go ahead and take this guy out. And I'll show you guys the ultimate gen on this, because like I said, it's pretty crazy how fast DKs can generate ultimate as is. So I'm already up to 54 and it's still climbing. That's at 66, 69. It probably capped out at 69, you know, and that was when the enemy was already at like half health. That was like, you know, what, 25% of my cost back in just a few seconds. That's why DKs are really awesome at Ultimate Gen already, because they don't have to cast abilities to get ultimate back, like the Templar does, and like the Warden does, and like the Nightblade does. The Sork has a 15% cost reduction, so that's where they make up their difference. But that is the Grim Healer build, and that's how it works. You focus on damage shield mitigation through healing, and then like damage shields and healing. That's it. That's how the build works. And the DK is one of the better options for it. Now I do want to show you this, because Warhorn's still going. This damage shield didn't go up by much. It really didn't. This didn't go up by much. Like the heals and stuff from a lot of these things, and the damage didn't go up by much. And that's why I said, like, even using, like, if I was to use the Inner Light with Warhorn, it would help, but it wouldn't help by such a large degree as spell damage would. Spell damage would be much better if I wanted to get more damage out of my character. But like I said, the cost of DK abilities is already so high, reducing them saves you resources, including these heals. Like, this is like normally 4,500. It saves you resources. It saves you magicka, so you're not burning through it like crazy. That's why I went with cost reduction and the 2k return. It works out really good for this build, because you will be heavy attacking from the back bar, even in a trial. Now, not all trials, but a lot of trials you'll be able to heavy attack from the back bar, and that's where this build really comes into play, especially for groups like protection and heals. But that's the Grim Healer, and I hope that you guys like it. Next up is another DK healer build. It's actually called a DK support build, and it runs in a very similar fashion to this, but it's more group support orientated with healing and a little bit more damage. So we'll take a look at that here in a second when I release when that video. So be ready to watch that video. It's gonna be, these are gonna be both released back to back. So gonna release this one and then the support build, and you guys can decide from there on which one you want to play. So, but that's pretty much it for this build discussion, and this is a Grim Healer. I hope you guys like it. I have a blast playing it. So thank you, Grim, for the great suggestions. And Grim, your build is still better. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I just didn't want to release his concept, because a lot of people would really freak out. Oh my god, you're wearing heavy armor with a light, healer and da-da-da. But it works out really good. And yeah. So maybe in another update I might do that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So if you guys like this video, it'd be great if you guys could or would hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me or want to check out my other builds I'm going to be releasing this week, you can hit that subscribe button. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and this guy might see you in game. Bye.